Hello and welcome to the Computer for St. Louis presentation on cybersecurity. This was updated on January 29th, 2026. So here are the topics we're going to cover. We're going to talk about our spam filter. We're going to talk about how infections happen. The big topic will be don't click there. We'll look at some attack examples. We'll talk about website quality and safety. We'll talk about compromised passwords, prevention methods. We'll talk about the dark web. At the end of this, you'll know what the dark web is. And then also, finally, what to do if you think you've been hacked. So the spam filter. The question we are often asked is, why do we need a spam filter? So it does several things. It hides your email server address from the world. What people will see is the spam filter address, and that's a good thing. It also keeps spam out of your email server. So that accomplishes two things. It reduces the storage on your email server, and your mailbox. It also keeps infected content far removed from your email server, which is a good thing. Finally, one of the most important steps is it makes you think twice. It is really easy to interact with mail in your junk mail folder, in your regular mailbox. But if it's sitting in the spam filter, you've got to think. It gives you an extra thought, like, why is this in my spam filter? Why is an email from somebody in my company in the spam filter? I didn't think email was supposed to go there. It's not. And so that extra thought is a good thing. So first, let's take a look at a summary email report. So here we have a sample summary email report that came earlier today. The first thing to look at is the email address here. If you're a member of a distribution group, you may see multiple reports. If that distribution group is just coming to you and no one else, then we can combine those reports together and make sure that you're getting just one report during every reporting period and not getting like 3 reports every 3 hours. But again, if you're a member of a group that's going to multiple people, it is what it is. Everybody's going to get a report. We might be able to condense it down, but then you're relying on one single person to determine what the spam and what is good and what is bad for the whole distribution group, which may be perfectly fine. So when I get these, I look down very quickly through this list. I look for a friendly name, email address that I trust, and that's how these appear. That's the friendly name on the left. That's the actual email address in between the brackets. If I see something I like, I click restore. Restore should simultaneously restore that email to your inbox and also whitelist the sender. Some senders rely on these randomized email addresses, and every time they send an email, it's going to be slightly different. So clicking restore is only going to restore the mail to your inbox. It's not going to whitelist it. If you're having a problem like that, where you feel like you're having to restore the same thing from the same people over and over, please let us know. We can look at the back end and figure out a way to make sure you don't have to do that anymore. Once I review this list, that is my entire interaction with the filter. I take this and I file it away to somewhere where it's easy to get to. I do not recommend any further interaction than that. I do like to have them handy because this link up here, view all messages in quarantine, is what's called tokenized, which means when you click on that, you don't need to know your username and password to see the full quarantine. You just need a link that was sent within the last 2 weeks. So I file all of these away in a folder I can get to quickly, because if I ever do want to get in the full quarantine, I can find a link that's recent very fast. The last thing I want to cover is, if you click on this subject here, you're going to get taken to a page that looks like this. This is a preview of the email. It's totally safe to view email here. So you'll see, again, friendly name, real email address in between the brackets, subject, date sent, who it was sent to, if there are any attachments or if there are anybody copied on it. Clicking show unsafe images, if we do that, you can see it will reveal the images on the email. Restore email works just like this action in the summary report. As always, I don't recommend on interacting with links in an email. Honestly, seeing links in an email is like 10 steps down the path toward I don't trust it. I would say, the other thing I would say is unsubscribe is a link in an email, and I don't recommend clicking on that. there's a law that states the rules about how unsubscribe is supposed to work. But I think that clicking unsubscribe for the more nefarious spammers out there, and there are quite a few, you're basically raising your hand and saying, this is an email, this is an active email, this person interacts with email, and unsubscribe from a list. So that is of some value, and I think that the more nefarious spammers are going to use that information and throw your name out there, throw your email address out there on another list. So I feel like unsubscribe, clicking on it, may take you off one list, but it may also subscribe you to 3 others. So I never recommend clicking unsubscribe. Honestly, if an email shows up in here, it's going to keep showing up in here. This is a great place to glance at stuff and ignore it. And that is my complete interaction with the spam filter 95% of the time. Just to cover a few additional notes when talking about the spam filter, we notice that clients have a tendency to restore mail when their name appears in the friendly name on an email. We're not 100% sure why people do this. Maybe it's because they're in the habit of copying themselves on emails. But if that's the case, it's not going through the spam filter. It's totally internal to your mail server. So the spam filter won't even come into it. If you see your name on an email and you really have a hankering to restore it, we recommend previewing it first, just to make sure, because there is a really good chance that's spam. The unsubscribe link, clicking on that is a good way to get more spam, because when you click on that, the sender is going to say, oh, this person clicked on unsubscribe. This is a real email. There's someone who reads these emails. I'm going to send them more junk. They're going to sign you up for more lists. They're going to report you as this is a good email. In general, you want to interact as little as possible with spam. That is why I recommend just read through the spam list. If you see something that looks right, restore it. If you see stuff that doesn't look right, ignore it. Interact as little as possible. Marking things as spam is okay, but to me it's just a waste of time. You just let it sit in the quarantine, and 30 days later it'll be purged. The quarantine is there to hold this stuff for a while and then get rid of it and keep it off your mail server. We want to interact with spam, with scams, with all of this stuff as little as possible. So now let's take a quick look at the full quarantine. So if you click on the full quarantine report, this is where you'll land. This is a list of all the junk you've received, and it is in real time. So if I scroll down, we can see here's the email I previewed before. And I would say a good chunk of these, probably the last 20, came after that last report came out. So if someone tells me, I sent you an email, did you get it? And it's not showing up in my inbox, and an Outlook junk folder didn't grab it either, I will go into one of these reports and just check for it in here. I'll hit refresh and see if it came. I just hit refresh, and I don't think I received any new email between 10 minutes ago and now. So that's pretty much my whole interaction with this. Again, like if you click on the subject, you can jump into that preview screen like we looked at in the previous slide. This shows the time of sending, this shows the recipient, this shows the sender, and then you can hover over the score. That's kind of cool because you can see why the filter scored something as negatively as it did. This button will download an email. I don't recommend it, especially if it has a 1,000 point score. And then this one will restore the email, which will restore that particular email and whitelist the sender. Again, I don't come in here very often. I come in here to look for an email when I can't find it in my inbox or my junk folder. There are other things you can do in here. I'm not going to cover them in this presentation because I'm trying to highlight, like, people really overthink the spam filter, and it's a lot simpler than you think. Your interaction should be sparing, and that's that. So a bit about the dark web. So know about the dark web. First of all, it's part of the deep web, which the deep web is just internet content that is not accessible through a normal web browser. So you're not going to get to deep web content through Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Mozilla Firefox. You've got to have a special browser that can find the IP address of that particular site, that server that you're trying to reach. The dark web is the nefarious side of the deep web. So people traffic in black markets there, stolen information, illicit goods, arms trafficking, the slave trade, unfortunately. Human trafficking happens on deep websites, dark websites. Also, people run botnet operations, so that's when they take over computers, and these computers are basically doing processing for illicit means. There are fraud and counterfeiting sites, and terrorist organizations operate on the dark web. So when you see someone saying they're looking through the dark web, they have software that can actually look at these sites and look to see if any of your information is exposed to this more nefarious site of the hidden internet. So, moving on, how infections happen. So usually people will click on a malicious link, either on the World Wide Web or in an email. That link will contain what is called an exploit. And an exploit is a snippet of code that doesn't raise an alarm from antivirus software. It's innocent looking enough to where none of the security layers we have in place recognize it as a real threat. That exploit will then figure out a way to phone home, and once it phones home, real malware is delivered and will begin spreading throughout your network. Ideally, this entire chain is broken if the person interacting with the internet or email does not click on the link in the first place. If you don't click there, none of this stuff can happen and you will stay clean. So here's an email attack sample. One thing you should always look for is unusual sending addresses, and you can also look for bad punctuation and grammar. So here we have, on the left, Zach Van Boeven is the friendly name. The actual email address is riddick@sagebeatons.com. They don't line up. So that should be a warning sign right there. The other thing, if you look at this, the grammar is atrocious. There's a lot of Wild West capitalization in there. The other thing to look at is we've got an external email banner right here. If you have one of these set up and you're getting it from an internal employee, that should be a red flag as well. This was an internal employee, but for some reason he's sending from an outside the domain. That should be a big red flag. Here's another email attack sample. I like this one. Well, I don't like it, but here's a good example of spam pretending to be legitimate. First of all, this is a fake banner. If you see a banner at the top of your email and it's something new to you, you've never seen it before, that should be a red flag to you. Webmail was a red flag for me because I know we don't use webmail. Most of our clients do not use webmail. Most of you have some kind of either exchange-based email or something that is more advanced than webmail. We also have some scary statistics down here, again trying to prove its legitimacy by throwing up stuff that looks official, but these are just thrown out statistics. It has no basis in reality. The bottom line is if you click solve now, you're asking for trouble. Here we have another email attack sample. Don't miss these 23 best Oprah's favorite things and unbeatable Black Friday deals. So first of all, this image is just taken from the web. They just stole it from actual Oprah's favorite things. It's easy to grab an image like that. So this link would install a tracking cookie on your computer if you clicked on it. And it will open a Google shopping search that takes you to Oprah's favorite things. So even if you click on it, the goal here is to make you feel like you actually did the right thing, that it took you to the right site and you're A-okay. The fun thing is whether you click on that link, any of the links inside the email, or even the unsubscribe link, it all does the same thing. It installs a tracking cookie and opens a Google shopping search. Another thing, adding legitimacy, you see this address at the bottom and you think, oh, this is legitimate because they put an address on it. Well, that address is a UPS store in San Diego, which I do not believe is Oprah's headquarters for her favorite things list. So here's an email attack sample. This is, for all intents and purposes, a LinkedIn email. It looks just like it. If you click on any of the links on here, it takes you to a LinkedIn login screen, or so you would think. This is not a LinkedIn page. All they did was copy the code. What it was designed to do is you try to log into LinkedIn, you put in your username and password, and they steal your username and password. So that's why we say if you get a message from anybody, never click on the link. Go to the site you know. Why click on the link in the email? Just open up a web browser and go to linkedin.com. This is also a fake sign-in. It looks exactly like the Microsoft. They just stole the Microsoft sign-in. You put in your email, you log in. One of the crazy things about this too is a lot of these fake site logins will take you to, like this, if you enter your information into this one, it would take you into Microsoft. You would be logged into Microsoft, and you would think what you did was fine. But when you logged in there, it stole your username and password and potentially your two-factor token. So that is why we say, don't click on the link in your email. Go to Microsoft.com, log in there. You know that's legitimate. So you've probably run into CAPTCHA where it is trying to verify that you're not a robot, verify you are a human being. Usually, like as you can see, the traffic light, pick the traffic lights in the picture, or type out the word that you see, something along those lines. There is a new scam out there that is asking you to complete verification steps, where the common one is press and hold the Windows key plus R, which opens a run dialog on your computer. A real CAPTCHA is only going to use a web-based interface. They're not going to ask you to do anything like hold down Windows and press R. If you had done those verification steps on the CAPTCHA on the right, you would have helped CAPTCHA install malware on your computer. In case you were wondering, the CAPTCHAs on the left are all real. The one on the right is fake. Malvertising, this is a really old slide, but it's still true. I mean, you'll see this stuff. Get $100 at free ads, get a $1,000 Amazon gift card. There is no prize. Like, you click on this stuff, you give away your information. You're basically signing yourself up for more spam, or tracking, or your information stolen. Another thing is, this is an old slide, but it still happens. There are fake updates. You'll see these a lot on like sites that offer free downloads. They'll trick you into clicking on like some kind of update. Always check the URL. You don't go to the techhouse.com to update Chrome. You go to Google. So I'm going to talk a little bit about wire fraud. The Butcher case is a famous case out of Colorado. Basically, the Butchers were a couple who were trying to purchase a home. A hacker gained access to their realtor's email, the Butcher's realtor's email, and started monitoring that realtor's email for a large transaction. They found the Butcher closing statement going back and forth. The realtor was checking the closing statement with the title company, which is common and normal. And the hacker emailed a fake closing statement out of the realtor's email account to the Butchers. They did not check that email address. And so, used the realtor's account. It had the title company's friendly name against the realtor's email address. And the Butchers didn't catch it, and they wired $267,000 to the hackers. Wells Fargo saw the wire come through. They thought it was fraud. The buyers said, no, we're buying a house, it's okay. And so Wells Fargo went away. Then the title company, the legitimate title company, emailed a real closing statement to the butchers a few hours later, and they realized they'd been had. So here's how to defeat this kind of thing. Oh, and by the way, just to, if you ever want to look it up, it's mind-blowing. But I mean, those poor people lived in their kid's basement for years. They lost their life savings. I think they wound up whole in the end. But if they had just paid attention to that email, if their realtor had been more careful, there are like 3 different things that would have been simple steps to stop this entire chain of horror. You want to encourage communication. If the butchers had just called the title company to say like, hey, we got this closing statement. Is this cool? Is this from you? That would have stopped it. You want to plan ahead. Like if the title company had called the butchers and said, I'm about to send you a closing statement, and then sent it, that would have, or if they said like, don't interact with anything until you confirm with us. That would have been nice. And as I say, you want to give out good contact information. Make sure everybody knows where things are coming from, who's going to send what, and as I said, manage those expectations. Let people know what's coming, when is it coming, and again, verification. If you verify things, like make sure that stuff is what it is. And I like direct contact. At some point, hackers are going to start impersonating people's voices on phone calls. I think it's happening. It's already happening. But so the closer, more direct contact you can get, the better. And as I say, don't click on the link in the email. Don't reply to the email if you suspect something. Don't call the number that's on the email. Just call the numbers you know. Go to the site you know. And then for businesses, I recommend setting up Positive Pay. It's basically you verify every transaction that comes through. In your personal life, I believe you can do something like that as well. But the sooner you catch fraud, the better. So in terms of website quality and safety, I thought I'd throw up some examples. These sites are all pretty safe to serve. The Wikipedia is donation driven. There's no advertising. It does have a lot of external links that could take you down a darker path, but Wikipedia itself is a safe place to go. NPR and PBS both have no advertising on their websites. Again, they're donation-driven organizations. It's a safe place to serve. BBC is actually now behind a paywall, but it has clearly marked advertising, and again, relatively safe to serve. LinkedIn is subscription driven. There's minimal advertising. I will say people post things on there that can be not the greatest, but for the most part, it's a place you can go where it's relatively safe to serve. Considerably less safe to serve. There are plenty of news sites out there on both ends of the political spectrum that are more advertising driven. And the rule of thumb is the more ads you see, the less I would trust a website. These sites will have some cookies to install, which, it's not the end of the world to install a cookie like that. But the more ads you see, the less I would trust a website. A lot of these sites have promoted articles, which are not really written by that site. They're written by an external, a third party, and they're very clickbaity. The worst sites, those promoted articles will not be as obvious. The better sites, it will be obvious. This is promoted content that's going to take you away from our website. At the bottom of the barrel is stltoday.com, unfortunately. That website is encrusted in advertising, and there's no quality control on those ads. There are banners everywhere. Ads pop up when you try to open an article. It really is a bad site. I don't recommend going there. I would get your news elsewhere because they have no quality control, and I think that you could click into an ad without knowing it and easily install malware because there's no quality control. The government guidance has always been just lock your doors. Most government agencies don't have great responses. I know that they pursue some hackers, but it's such a big business that they can't go after them all, and they don't, unfortunately. I think if we spent more money on this, they could actually do something about it, but for some reason they don't, and I don't think people are serious about it. They just kind of hum their way through it. Here's a quote from FBI Cyber Intelligence. The ransomware is just that good. To be honest, we often advise people just to pay the ransom, which basically says you're on your own. And that's why we also say you've got to watch yourself, because nobody else is going to have your back. So here's how password compromise happens. So let's say you went to that LinkedIn or Microsoft login that we talked about earlier, and you gave up your password, or a website that you routinely log into routinely gets hacked, and the hackers, what'll happen is the hacker will steal all the usernames and passwords from that website. So eventually, when they get a big enough list, they'll sell it. They'll go on the dark web and sell that list of username and passwords. Someone will buy it, and then they'll program a robot to try those username and password combinations all over the web. Here's a great site to visit. If you want to scare yourself straight, go to haveibeenpawned.com. You can punch in your email address. That's my briancrassy@yahoo.com is a very old email address that I've had forever. I think I've had it for about 26 years now, and it has been in 12 different data breaches. I'm not worried about it though, because the password on that site is completely different from every other password that I use, and I change it periodically. And yeah, it's been compromised a bunch of times, but yeah, it just is what it is. The password that was compromised is useless everywhere else. So prevention. We recommend you change login passwords periodically. We recommend you use a different password for every website. Make it complex as possible. Use as many characters, numbers, and symbols as you can. I recommend a long sentence or phrase. You know, on a password that you can't store anywhere, a phrase can be very effective and memorable and harder to hack than using all the symbols in the world. And if you ever want to pick my brain about that, I'm happy. But I'll go to like random word generator and throw out 3-word combinations until I see one that's memorable to me. The big one is don't save passwords in a browser. That is easily compromised. What we do recommend is a password manager. We use LastPass, but we have clients who use Keeper and Dashlane. They all have free options. They are easy to use. You can generate really complicated passwords there. You only need to remember the password to get in. If they all support 2-factor authentication getting in, which we always recommend. More about that later. If you have a business account, you can safely share passwords between users. You can retain notes on reset questions and all kinds of other stuff. And it also has built-in multi-factor. So if you're using one of those password managers to get into other sites, I don't know if it's true on the free accounts, but certainly with the business account, you can store multi-factor tokens there and get in using that. So very useful piece of software. Helps you track all those different passwords you're maintaining with a lot of security around it. And if one of your passwords gets compromised, it is easy to use the password manager to reset them and store the new password. So multi-factor authentication. This is multiple methods of authentication to boost your security. The most common methods are getting an SMS message sent to your cell phone. You can get a token sent to your cell phone through an app. Here's a couple of examples. Hardware tokens, so that's like a keychain fob with it'll have like 6 digits on it that you punch in. The bottom line is we can help set up multi-factor authentication wherever you need it. Now, among these methods that I'm describing, these common methods, SMS is the most easily compromised. It's better than nothing. The token sent to your cell phone is the recommended method by us. And the reason being, if you lose your cell phone, like alarm bells go off and you're going to take great steps to get it back. So we like that method. Those tokens can be stolen, but it's tough and it's noticeable. Hardware tokens are good and pretty secure. the problem that we have with those is people leave them at home, and then you wind up bypassing multi-factor to get into stuff. And the cell phone is something. If you drive away from your house and you leave your cell phone behind, you're probably going to turn around and get it. Where the hardware token, people leave it at home all the time. They just they call us and figure out how to bypass it, which is not good. We don't want to do that. We talked about this earlier, but just there are 2 email banners we can throw up. The external one we already saw. There's a more aggressive one that is basically, this is an external email and the sender may not be who they claim to be. So in this case, it was an email from Seth Russell. That friendly name was in a list at the Russell Tech VoIP email site, and it was basically, if we see this name Seth Russell, I want to throw this up here because it's coming from out the inside the organization. And so you can do that too. We can set up a thing where key employees, if they're emailing in and it's not coming from your organization, you're going to get this extra banner that says, hey, this person that might be impersonating your boss. And that's where, if you see that, we encourage verification for sure. Public Wi-Fi is easy to hack. There are also a lot of fake public Wi-Fi networks out there. We recommend against doing business on public Wi-Fi. If you can avoid it, you're better off. Cellular data plans are good these days, and cellular coverage is good. So by all means, if you can get away with just working off your cellular alone, that's probably the best way to go. If you absolutely have to use public Wi-Fi, we recommend setting up a VPN, running VPN on your laptop or setting up DNS proxy. We can help with that. It's included with our monitoring and fully managed services. We recommend turning off sharing and network discovery. So when you join a network and it says, do you want this device to be publicly searchable, publicly discoverable? The answer is always no. You do not want it to be discoverable. Using a cell phone, we recommend turning off Wi-Fi when you're not using it. It's, you swipe down on an iPhone and you press that little blue button there. I gotta admit, I don't do this. I use Wi-Fi in my car. CarPlay works off of Wi-Fi, so this is less practical advice, but if you're really security conscious, this can't hurt. I definitely recommend turning off automatic network discovery. Most people turned that off a long time ago. That was the thing where when you were out and about, you would see your phone pop up with a message. Do you want to join this network? Do you want to join that one network? Most people turned that off a while ago, but if it's turned on, we recommend turning that off. So antivirus, our recommendation is ESET. It runs the background, it's light on your system. It deploys computer learning heuristics, which basically means if a piece of code looks like it's a threat, it probably is a threat. So it's good at catching stuff on the first day before there's a definition of that threat has been recorded. It also has built-in malware protection. So now if you're at home and you're worried and you just want to run a quick check, malwarebytes.com is a good place to go. You can download Malwarebytes and just run a full scan on your computer and then uninstall it. I recommend using ESET at home. There are other antiviruses out there that are good. You just want to make sure that it's got that heuristic ability. And then there's more advanced versions of antivirus that we have installed for a bunch of clients that are either very security conscious or have an insurance company requiring it. The bottom line is you never want to disable antivirus to make something work. If someone is asking you to disable antivirus, I would become instantly very suspicious. So finally, if you think you've been hacked, don't panic, but panic a little. You don't want to waste time. That's the most important thing, is you want to act fast. If you suspect an email infection, just the first thing we're going to tell you is we're going to ask if you've changed your password. So change your password right away. The other thing is if you're seeing your mouse move around, your computer do things, unplug from the network, disconnect from wireless. that little radio tower button on your laptop, that turns your Wi-Fi off. Some laptops have a switch that will put them into airplane mode. If you're working on a PC, just unplug that Ethernet cable from the back of your computer. Or if you can't figure that stuff out, yank the power plug. Hold down the power button on a laptop. You can't hack a computer that's not turned on. Once you've disconnected from everything, by all means run a full scan, but also like call us. That's what we're here for. We're here to fight this stuff. So to review, I'm going to make sure everybody's got good contact information. People need to be able to get a hold of you. You need to be able to get a hold of people. Make sure that everyone knows how to do that. Always encourage communication, even if it sounds silly. You don't want to beat up somebody who's trying to verify whether something's legitimate or not. You don't want to discourage that. Don't click there. Can't say it enough. If it triggers an emotion, sounds too good to be true, it's probably not. Go straight to the URL you know. Don't click on links. And as I said before, interact as little as possible. Use a password manager. They're great. There are free versions out there. Use two-factor authentication whenever it's offered. Avoid public Wi-Fi. I recommend using cellular data if you have a good plan. Make sure you have antivirus software on your work PC, but also at home. And if all else fails, feel free to call us. So as I mentioned before, if you want to check your credentials to see if they've been stolen, haveibeenpawned.com. It is currently tracking 943 pawned websites, and roughly 1.4 billion compromised accounts are being tracked. That is today's statistic. These numbers go up every time I check them. And thank you for listening. I hope this was informative. If you have any questions, we are a phone call or email away. And I thought I'd just end the presentation on this slide because it's a great site to visit if you want to scare yourself straight. It is time to change your password. It's always time to change your password.